Right. So, hello everyone. Welcome. Good evening. A special welcome to all our viewers who have joined us on the this live AMA session with Sanuda and Chitransh. Today we are going to discuss a lot of stuff about how supply chains function, especially in terms of global disruptions that have been happening quite regularly in this decade. And we're also going to discuss a little bit about what are the careers that you can explore in supply chain, and how is it how do supply chains function at Decathlon. And there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff and interesting conversations that you will come to hear in the next hour or so. So let me just dive right in and introduce Sanutha and Chitransh. So Sanuda is the procurement planning manager at Decathlon, and Chitransh is country sports leader for racket sports at Decathlon. So welcome to both of you. It's really, really a pleasure to have you both on board for this particular webinar today.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
and it's our pleasure as well to be a part of this webinar, and really look forward to have some fruitful conversations during next 1 hour.
Sure. So, the start of, sorry. Hello. Yeah. So to start off, there has been, a lot of talk about how the supply chain and logistics infrastructure in India is quite different from what's outside India and the global network. And there's a lot of difference in the way the entire industry functions here in India. And it's a lot fragmented than outside, and that also presents its opportunities in a certain way, but it also opens up certain weaknesses. And during especially during the pandemic and the supply chain disruptions after related to the war, there has been a lot of talk about how supply chain disruptions can entirely disrupt a product life cycle for a company. And it can really it would be really great if companies could have a contingency plan to deal with such problems. But at the same point of time, because supply chain is such an intricate network of of certain processes that work end to end, it's almost like a clockwork. One process gets disrupted, and I think everything just starts falling apart, right? So my first question here, I think, for you guys is to how does Decathlon, such a big MNC, based in France, but operates all over the globe in about over 33 cities in India, and in so many countries also. So how do you manage supply chains in this industry, in the retail sector?
Thanks for the question. For last 2 years, like you mentioned, there has been a lot of disruption, right? And we all know that the disruption has been across the supply chain, right from manufacturing to, the warehousing part, and also a lot of transport disruptions as well. What has really worked for us is our volume game. Like you said, of course, we are a big company. And most importantly, we are big in terms of the volumes that we play, and in terms of the offer and the kind of assortment that we offer to the customer. Now, how this helps us is in order to get our manufacturing network very, very strong. Like across the globe, we have around 700 suppliers, 700 manufacturing suppliers who are on board with us in order to, kind of help us manage this disruption. Now, for Decathlon India specifically, for us to make closer to home, when I say closer to home, make in India is a strategy. Now, for us, the disruption normally is more when the dependency on the global supply chain is high. Here, how we kind of manage this is to have or make closer to home, hence to kind of manage the disruptions better, and to sort of lower the dependency on global supply chain.
Right.
Chitransh could probably add more about the retail front as well.
Yeah, indeed. What Sanata is saying is exactly in the same lines where we say we want to stabilize on something where we know it's not only about assortment list, as Sanata was mentioning. We go further detail in that. We know there is certain thing called as renewal rate every year, which impacts every company's budget, and this is something that we really like to control. And in last 2 years, which is where we took major control, and we said we will reduce the renewal rate, try to cap our volumes through there, and all the money saved through that we will invest in the profitability, rather than just going full live wide on various offers and everything, big assortment list. In Decathlon we call it offer list, but we try to take a real control over our offer, was first point. And then when it comes to store, we try to keep our offer very limited for the needs, because we know during pandemic not everybody was buying everything. So this is where we also decided that something on those lines we have to work. And the last part was digitization. We know, we understood the need of an hour was to go digital super fast, and everybody was sitting in front of a laptop or a screen or a phone, whatever they chose. So this is, I think, one of the steps that really helped us to go further over there. So yeah, that's from my side.
Also, one of the most important things is I mentioned that the array of manufacturing suppliers in our supply chain is vast. Now, how does that really help us is because of the size of some of these suppliers, we are able to kind of take advantage of, let's say, holding on to more components when we don't need it. When I say components, I mean raw materials. There have been cases where the stores were shut for months together, which means that there is no real need of the product, right? So in that case, the raw material becomes redundant. Now, the only option is if a supplier who's of a very vast scale can help us in minimizing this sort of a disruption. Had it been a smaller scale, maybe this kind of disruption would be higher for a smaller brand. But because of the volume games that we play and because of the longer partnerships that we have with some of the suppliers, it becomes easier for us to manage the stock situations and hence reduce the kind of disruption that we saw or maybe the other brands saw.
Right, right. Interesting. I think you both, Sanutha basically harped on how, the volume game is helping you guys to, actually minimize, losses and also work in longer relationships with your suppliers. But Chitransh, you also mentioned the digitalization, and I'll come to that. I'll come to that part later during this webinar. I think it's a very interesting, turn of events in this particular industry, especially. But my next question is, and one of this has been asked by one of our community members. I think, how is Decathlon trying to streamline its procurement processes? Is it that now, is it now only that you have started focusing on building relationships with suppliers who operate at very large scale, or has it always been the game for you, and how does it work?
So, in terms of building the procurement strategies, it's not now. I mean, in India, for that matter, Decathlon, before the retail came in, since I think 1999 is when the production started. Decathlon owned production started in India. So it's really that, before, so to say. And it's a long term one. And the kind of production countries that exist in Decathlon are, let's say, there is China, there is Vietnam, there is Indonesia, then there is also some parts of Europe which manufacture products for Decathlon, and India as well. Now, coming to the procurement strategies, they are of threefold. Okay. Now, when we say how do we handle or how do we kind of begin the procurement strategies for a particular season or for a particular year, we start as early as 2 years before. Okay. And let's say for 2024, I'm already building Decathlon India as a custom zone, is already building the procurement strategies. So to say that, just for you guys to know, we have 34 industrial processes. When I say industrial processes, it could be a footwear, it could be a metal manufacturing process, it could be a textile manufacturing process. Even within textile, it could have nuances of an oven or a knit t-shirt that we all wear, like you're wearing currently. So all of these are different industrial processes, right? So across these processes, we kind of begin to build strategies for 2024, saying, if I have to procure a certain set of products for N plus 2, how will I place my procurement strategy? More of long term, in terms of where do I procure my products from, at what kind of profitability that I procure my products from, and what is my long range planning. Is the capacities that we have across the production zones enough for the needs that I have? So it's mostly the long term planning that we do in terms of being sustainable, in terms of profitable, right? And then comes to the more of a mid range, and the third part being the closer to home or closer to the actual need date kind of planning. So this is where we actually get into the details of how profitable a business is going to be, how profitable the procurement is going to be, where am I sourcing it from, what are the long-term suppliers that I have on board, if there is going to be a different technical product that we are going to offer to a consumer, do I have a supply panel? Do I have a supplier who is capable of doing this? If not, how can I work with the production teams in order to onboard a supplier? Right? So onboarding of a supplier or a manufacturing firm is not easy. It takes anything from 2 years to 4 years, because there are audits which are required. Firstly, you need to look at technical feasibility of a supplier being able to manufacture the product, so on and so forth, right? So we start as longer as early as rather 5 years before, and then there is 2 year planning that we do, and then the final milestone being closer to the season. This is how we kind of lay our procurement strategies.
Right. Interesting. And I think, I think what I have a follow-up question on that. I'm not sure how, so because when you say, you plan so many years in advance, there are certain preferences, there are certain consumer preferences, there are certain things that keep changing and evolving over, at least. And nowadays, I think, in retail, especially, it just so often happens that, things change in just 6 months period of time, right? And so how do you deal with that? Because you planned a certain way in, for 2 years, 5 years, and now things are changing. So how do you account for that?
It's a good question. Now, which is why I said, again, going back to the supplier base that we have, we manufacture in China. We also manufacture in India. All right. Now, China being China, they have a technical expertise which can be developed more quickly.
Okay.
Similarly, in case of a country like Vietnam, unfortunately for us, in a country like India, our ability to kind of very quickly develop a technical product is not very high, so to say. Also governed by a lot of our government interventions, like most of our MSMEs, so to say, do not have that support from Indian government, right? So the ability of our Indian supplier to gear up to the speed that a Chinese supplier can gear up is very limited. So when we look at, like Chitransh was saying, in our assortment of products, we have what is called as permanent, which is going to be existent and be offered to the consumer for more than 3 years. The products are going to be in our range, in our stores for more than 3 years. So these are the products we plan to make closer to home, to make it more profitable and to offer it to our consumers at a much valuable price, right? And the so-called technical products are the ones we plan to procure it from more technically viable production countries like China and Vietnam. So
Right.
Therefore, the array of the production countries that we have, array of the suppliers that we have, help us do this.
Right. Impressive stuff. But so coming back to this, and since I've been an avid follower and I think a loyalist for the Decathlon brand for quite some time now, and so just thinking about that, when you enter a Decathlon store, I think there are millions of SKUs out there, right? And it is so easy to just get lost in the store. But at the same point of time, how do you ensure that each and every item is stocked? And just, I mean, this is probably a very simple question for you, but the kind of demand planning and the inventory planning that you guys would have to do, can you shed some light on that?
Yes, indeed. Maybe I will take up this, Sanuka, because this is something that I've been doing for quite some time, and it's very interesting. Is for sure we study trends, we see competitor trends, we see inner trends, we study consumer behavior over a continuous time period. Then there is something called as trajectories, and I don't know whatever term you want to call it, but what we really study is Indian market in detail, consumer behaviors, what is there. And as per that, we try to align our offer and the way we merchandise them in our store. Why we keep saying these simple words again and again is, I think if we try to keep it very complex, it's very tough for in the end user. And simplify to simplify is the word which keeps popping up in our discussions every day. Like, try to simplify as much as possible, whether it has to be, let's say if you guys have to go and buy a boot, what is your need? So what are the top 5 questions that we need to ask? So this is something that we work on everyday basis that really helps us to say, how do we make a choice easier? And at the same time, what Sanuka was discussing, and in a previous question, I was just trying to link it, is there's a mix of both. There is something called as permanent. So we try to take a control over there. And maybe these are the ones which I think are jargon, management jargon, I'll use as 2080s, 540s. This is somewhere we try to take control. At the same time, we don't want to lose the essence of business that everyday user needs something new solution, or maybe in a simpler words, it's a problem to be solved, or a better product, or a better solution to a simpler need. So something on those lines. So we keep working every day towards it. And as there is a procurement team, there is similarly a team working every day whose target is to redesign the product to make it much better. So yeah, that's more from the product redesign side. When it comes to the store division, as you were saying, it comes that we have an everyday obsession of how to keep it very I'll use the word seductive for customers, but maybe the right word is make it very easy and simplify the options of how to choose.
Right. And I think, as many times as I think walked into a Decathlon store, there's never been a moment where I've been, I think left confused as to what to buy. I think there's always someone around the corner who's always there to help. I think that's one of the key experiences of, walking into the store. So I think kudos to that. But so apart from these, are there any challenges that you as an organization have faced, in this last 2 or 3 years, in particularly in supply chains, and have you taken away some learnings from that, apart from the ones that we already discussed?
Yes. So most importantly, with respect to supply chain and procurement, I was mentioning about some strategies of Indian government, right? So in a global supply chain, some of the non-duty actions, so to say, you might have heard of BIS, something called, it is basically an ISI standard, or rather a Bureau of Indian Standard, which essentially requires the supplier manufacturing a particular product to be certified on quality and legal standards to produce the product. All right. Now, the product can come from China, the product can be made in Vietnam, the product can be made in India. Now, because of this, there is a restriction on our imports, which means that what we would earlier import very easily from China or Vietnam is restricted now. This is one of the non-duty actions. Now, this comes as a surprise to many of the, let's say, the footwear brands or the toys. Now, there is a restriction on toys as well with respect to this. And similarly, there are a lot of course, they're right in what they're doing from their perspective, but from the retail perspective, and for many of the brands who are dependent, so to say, on global supply chain, it is a restriction. Now, what is the learning from that is make closer to home, make closer to where the demand is, make closer to where your customer is. For us, the strategy is very simple, therefore, to make more in India, so that all these restrictions that are imposed can be a sort of learning for us. In fact, can be more profitable for us because we are making more in India, more closer to the home. Therefore, lesser impact of, let's say, custom duty, lesser impact of something like exchange rate. Now we all see how the INR to USD is really going above the roof, and it's a difficulty for most of the brands, right? So the exchange rate, for example, it's a big learning for us not to be over dependent on imports. Likewise, the non-duty actions. So some of these are really, really an eye opener for many of us in retail, to say that, okay, we can't be so dependent on imports, and let us, kind of look options and look for more profitable options closer to home.
Yeah, sorry, Chidrash, you're saying something.
No, what I would like to add is over here is in last 2 years, yes, we faced a lot of challenges in terms of especially trying to minimize assortment list, as the word we were using before. And Sanutha was saying rightly that we face a lot of challenges on a lot of licenses issues and duty restructuring, GST rate increasing, and all those things. So, I mean, at one point we wanted to what do you say, don't pass out this cost benefit to customer. At the same time, our supply chain was strong enough to say we take all this impact and we don't pass on this extra cost to customer. So I don't know if you know this, but our value is simple: everyday low price to customer. We don't believe in being very super expensive. So this all these impacts coming from environment, and as Sanutha was saying, our procurement strategy and offer assortment, all the strategies was to keep everything within India and increase the model India to India also, maybe not just the fact is we are a French company. We have offer driven from France, but at the same time, when the tough time came, we had to take a stance, and one of the stance was to maybe increase the India to India offer. So this is something which really changed the game. And then at the same time, we had to take certain risk over the new product categories which were not made in India, but at the same time, we had to find industrialization options for this. So we went in detail over there. So that's what I feel really helped us. And at the same time, I think what helps every company is what is the value that they propose, or what is the vision of each company. And we believe in everyday low pricing. So we don't beat around it, and whatever happens from backside, or whatever the word you want to use it in supply chain, we ensure that it's the impact is taken care within the our supply chain and not to be passed on to end customers.
Right. All right. Thanks for that. So now that you both have talking about specifically about how it's increasingly important for brands to also understand and to increase reliance on manufacturing in India. How do you think the landscape of manufacturing in India is changing, especially like with initiatives, and not just manufacturing but also the entire supply chain network, setting it up to managing all the components of it? How do you think it's changing with the recent initiatives, like for example, say PM Gati Shakti plan that's also being discussed since a year now, and or say for example ONDC, where probably consumers will be able to directly source goods from their suppliers, and so how do you think the entire game is changing now?
So in terms of the manufacturers, our game is strong when it comes to the basic level of manufacturing, and where there is volume game involved, right? And there are enough and more suppliers, so to say, in the country who are very well versed in. I'll speak more about the products related to Decathlon. For example, our textile game is very, very strong. Like India as a country is a textile hub, so to say. I mean, that's why you see so many of the other brands really kind of sourcing from India. We export a lot of textile out from India, so that's pretty strong, so to say. But when it comes to even in the same segment of textile, can really a smaller supplier sustain with so many cost challenges, with so many restrictions that come our way in terms of the duty of raw materials, duty on raw materials being procured, or on the exchange rate? Really not. The smaller suppliers are the ones who really struggle in this area of things. That's more on the textile part of it. When it comes to the other, let's say, other processes, wherein a wood manufacturing, so to say, or a metal manufacturing, so to say, or a plastic. Okay, we have very, very less big players here. The big players in this segment are mostly the automobile, maybe, or a bike manufacturer. But can somebody really help us make a racket at the price that we want? Maybe not, And there are a lot of players who are, so to say, unorganized manufacturers, which we do not really encourage, and so to say, many of the bigger brands do not really encourage these unorganized players. And these unorganized players, you would be surprised to know, they can really offer at the best possible price that is available. But are they really audit proficient, or really legally there, or in terms of any HR compliance, IR issues, in terms of quality compliance and all of that, are they really there? Maybe not, not yet. So in terms of a lot of these technical processes, some of them that I mentioned, from what it was 5 years back, there is certainly a growth. But can we be faster? Of course, we can be faster. And a lot of it, just to give you an example, steel, right? In last 2 years, the amount of exports that we have done of steel is enormous. And hence, what is available for us to consume locally is very limited. And what does that throw as a challenge to us is in terms of prices. And can government really control this? Even in case of cotton, we ended up exporting a lot than what we can consume or what is available for us internally. So these kind of things actually throw a challenge for us internally in order to, be more cost effective.
Got it. Right. So, and just one follow-up question on the procurement process. I think we've received that, Suleiman Ansar on the live chat also asked this, and I'm just going to tweak this question slightly. So how does Decathlon, start the procurement process with the global vendors? How I'm gonna just tweak this is, how does the procurement process for example, say a global vendor and an Indian vendor differ?
It does not differ. It's the same for a global vendor and an Indian vendor. For us, when I talk about in India as a custom zone, Decathlon India as a custom zone, we are not any production zone agnostic. Okay, for us, every production zone is same. Whoever is able to provide us product at a sustainable rate, at a profitable rate, and for us to be more responsive to the customer that we serve or the user that we serve, they're all the same. So for us, how does it begin to come to that? We float a quotation, a sort of an RFQ process, request for quotation, to all the vendors at the same time.
Right.
Maybe over here, I would like to move back forth a little. Is the way we set up a vendor is very rigorous. We don't just validate anybody so easily. It includes a very rigorous HRP audit, environmental audit, and a process audit of all those things. So that really, it's a standard document of auditing. So whether it's in India, Vietnam, or maybe Poland, wherever the supplier is opening, they will have to follow the same guidelines. Point number one. And the idea is simple. Whatever happens, we keep basics same everywhere. And this is what is our real strategy. And as for procurement, it comes, I think it's a very classic business management metrics of pricing, lead time, flexibility, and quantity flexibility. I think these 4 factors matters for each one. So even if we have 2, 3, 4 suppliers, we decide basis of that which one will have more according to these metrics.
Right. And I think that also creates a level playing field for, I think, all suppliers, and also helps you, increase, as you said, play in the volume game for also in terms of suppliers. But yeah, so I mean, you guys have heard, I think, quite a lot about supply chain from Chitransh and Sanudha, and I think this is the appropriate time to also, sort of share some details with you about, one of the programs that we are running with the Decathlon and with SPJMR. It's a certificate program in supply chain. I think you'll see a lot of stuff about you learn a lot of core concepts about supply chain and its components, right from procurement, transportation, warehousing, everything. And all this is going to be taught by SPJMR faculty and also industry experts like Chitransh and Sanutha from Decathlon and some other companies, right? And you're going to learn a wide gamut of you're going to gain a wide gamut of knowledge from this particular program. It's going to have weekend sessions, and you're going to get a lot of knowledge about supply chain. You're going to not just learn in live learning sessions, but also you're going to learn from recorded sessions. You're going to learn from case studies, simulations. You'll also do a lot of interview prep. But the main thing is, you at the end of it all, you'll get one thing you'll get is certificate from SPJMR in supply chain management. You'll get a chance to interview with Decathlon for a full-time job opportunity, and you will also work on a live project with Decathlon. Now, this kind of industry exposure is something which is just going to help you grow a lot, and you can just check out. I think you'll see a lot of you'll see the links in the live chat, and I think you can just you can also see check out the link in the description, and you can always check out a website and learn more about the program. And this will just ensure that you get kick-started with your career in supply chain management, and most probably also with Decathlon. And you can see how interesting, I think, even I would give anything for this opportunity to work with Decathlon. I think it's one of the best brands here out there. So moving on, I think, one of the questions that that has also come up in the live chat, and we've also received previously on the form that we floated out from the community. So how does Decathlon manage sustainability? And we're not just strictly talking about probably using EVs in terms of transportation, but also how does Decathlon, because it operates in so many countries. In India alone, you have over 100 plus stores. And how do you manage, to build a sustainable supply chain solutions throughout the country or throughout the world?
Okay, maybe I will throw some facts here. It will make the session more interesting. Point number one is, I think when we talk of sustainability, what is more important is CO2 emission, and more than 70% of emission is consumed by the time the product is in store. So this is one fact which I will use to define my actions. And then the second fact is, if you're thinking transportation is the biggest thing, no, it's just 2% of the impact on the whole ecosystem of CO2 emission of the product life cycle. So when I consider the whole product life cycle, what is most important is the product design. And that's why if any one of you watching this session right now goes to decathlon.in, they type something called as eco design, you will see more than 500, 600 landing pages of eco design products. What are these? These products is something where we have re-engineered something so that the CO2 emission is reduced by 40%. And I think this really tells a direction that how we want to work forward for. Today, this category of product is roughly 40%, and the trajectory for 2026 is way higher. But this really sets a direction that we really want to work in detail on redesigning the products, whether it's about component redesign, whether it's about product redesign, whether it's about changing something in the process. Like I don't know if you know the T-shirt that you are wearing. It needs at least 80 liters of water just to make one T-shirt like that. And if we have to change to dry dye or something, it saves that much water. So yeah, we are changing processes every day. Maybe cost is higher, but at the same time, we understand that this is the future. We cannot keep playing in the past and just think, what is the word is, we can't be selfish always that just price is the important factor. So environmental is also an important factor. Then coming to most important part of this answer is what is the stance that we work with. First is eco design. I think this is the word that I'm using. You can go on decathlon.in and you will check big category of product. Second is, I think it's more on zero single-use plastic. I know Indian government has been putting bans over it, and more than Indian government, I think some state governments like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and a few other states have taken lead on it, and they've done it in 2020 before, during the COVID. So we are eliminating, and I think the number is around 1/3 of the plastic from our ecosystem. We have tried to eliminate single zero-use plastic. Then the last part is, which is very important, I think you would be very interested to hear, is something about extending the product life cycle, which is in our words, we call it second life, which means a product could be reused. Let's say, example, I have a kid. He was 4-year-old. He was using a skate, and he grows to 8-year-old. The skate is not bad, but he cannot use it anymore. So we are working on something called a second life, which includes repairing and refurbishing the old products, which could be re-entered into the ecosystem for customers to reuse. So, these 4 steps is something that we are defining to be really sustainable. And then for sure, I think it's when we say sustainability, it's more of a simple word, is common sense and responsibility. I think that answers everything. Over to you, Sanata, if you want to add anything.
Absolutely. Common sense and being more cautious about the decisions that we take in supply chain. For example, when it comes to responsiveness towards customers, the brands often, take decisions on airlifting the products, right? That's one of the things that we are very, very against. For example, for the rest of the year, there is a decision that we don't airship anything. It's okay if we don't have the products available, but at the same time, our contribution to the environment is very, very important. So actions like this is what defines our, motive towards eco design and
Right.
sustainability.
All right. Interesting. Also, so in the context of the entire scenario, and in the context of the disruptions that we're talking about, just revisiting one of the points that are also come up within the community, within our community. I think, how is it possible, to balance an efficient supply chain as against, a responsive supply chain in the longer term scenarios?
So when do you call a supply chain efficient? You call a supply chain as efficient when it is faster, when it is able to respond to the customer needs much quicker, and at the same time being cost effective. What has happened during last 2 years has actually made us think twice in terms of, okay, can we have both? And at times we've had to make choice. All right, we've had to make choice on whether we really are efficient in terms of being able to provide value for money for our customers, and at the same time make products available for our customers. Unfortunately, the first thing has taken a hit over last 2 years because of a lot of overcost situations that we've come across, wherein you have in logistics the containers not available. Like, a container which is transporting a treadmill, all of a sudden we realized Americans are being, overtly fitness freaks, and they're buying more treadmills, so to say. So all the containers from China happen to end up in US of A, or maybe other, so to say, rich countries, which made it impossible for us to kind of, have the containers for us back in Asia. So you won't believe that the cost, I'm sure all of us know by now that the cost that we are looking at for logistics actually was 3 times the cost that we were paying probably in 2019 pre-COVID. All right. So therefore, how do we kind of manage these situations? For us, it was okay, because again, we manufactured more closer to home. We realized that this is the game that we are going to play if we have to be more effective in this particular game. Like I said, cost efficiency maybe was not something that we went after, but yes, in terms of responsiveness, we became much better because of our making closer to home and decisions like this.
Got it. All right. So there's this one question we've received, and I think a lot of people would like to know that. And since we're talking about dealing with, uh, such kind of, it's just such kind of situations where you'll have to deal with them with instinct. I think. Would you care to describe, what your day to day looks like? For example, when you're not probably when there's a lot of demand in cycles, as you said, in India, for cycles in India, but you don't have the necessary supply to make sure that the customers get it. But how do you ensure, how do you solve these problems and in real time? Because right now probably it might just sound very easy when you're talking about it, but I think in real life when you're solving those problems, I think it will be just havoc. And how what does a day to day look like? How do you solve these problems in each of your roles?
Maybe I'll start this first. Yeah. So I think there's a very smart button called as panic button. It's pressed every second in our job, every single second, every single day. What is really important is to choose our battles. We cannot fight all the battles. Trust me. In supply chain, you will have a lot of battles every day from pricing, profitability, planet. Three axes that really matters to every company is how do we manage all these things. So my understanding is you will have these battles every day, but you will have to choose very wisely which is important for you, which will impact you today, maybe tomorrow, year end, and then as Sanada was saying, 24. So this is something that we really work on our strategic axis, that it's a clear direction which we have decided at company level that we won't lose our value of everyday low pricing. So we work on that every day. At the same time, available for any product in customer for any of the customer. So this is something is one of the essence. So we keep it alive. At the same time, at the back end, trust me, I have everyday interaction with Sanuta as a team. And the only thing that we are talking is, okay, what's the next solution? Plan A doesn't work. Plan B, plan C, plan D. So I think this is more of my way of looking at the situation. You have to be ready with multiple options always. Have to weigh which one is better. And at the same time, sometimes you have to trust the process, that the person in the front of you, maybe you don't trust him, but the intention is correct for everybody. In the end, everybody is working for the same reason. So I think this works out amazingly well for us right now. Sanoda, if you want to add, but that's more from my understanding.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of last 2 years and the disruptions that we have seen, as much as we do long-term planning, we've ended up doing as much as troubleshooting and problem solving on day-to-day basis, right? And again, I come back to the vastness of the supply chain that we have, and it's only because of that vastness and the multiple, and therefore the multiple options that are available for us. It could be purely in form of number of production countries that are available for us, and we have that kind of options to choose from. Uh, that has helped us a lot in our the way we troubleshoot or solve the problem quickly. And over a span of last 2.5 years, we have seen a situation of overstock, where our stores were shut and all of that, and also a situation of understock. And what do you do in situations like what Chitransh was saying, the troubleshooting every day? Every day there is a surprise that keeps thrown by us, either by global supply chain scenarios or by nature that we all live in, right? For example, this time the monsoon appeared quickly. Like you have seen how it's raining for last 1 week or 15 days, but the monsoon appeared as early as April, and heavy monsoon. So how do you kind of make product available for the consumer, therefore? Because one thing that we all are mindful in our brand and Decathlon as a company is, we serve customers on a daily basis, and customers who are who want to come and buy for the value that we offer and the price that we offer. All right. So anybody who walks into the store comes in looking out for a specific product and also ends up buying a lot of things impulsively.
Hmm.
Right.
Right.
So therefore, for both the situations, how are we ready and how are we going to be in a situation where we can serve the consumers equally and better way.
Right.
So this is a challenge that gets thrown for us every day. Like sometimes, like I said, by supply chain, or sometimes by nature, or sometimes by a competitor. So and we take it head on.
Right. Great. So one of the questions that we had also received earlier, I think that relates to this, since you were mentioning, the constant firefighting that you have to deal with in the job. Is it also true that all supply chain careers, or how true is the myth that supply chain careers requires longer hours on site, and how is the work life balance for you guys? Because I know as a fact that I know that Decathlon for its own employees also encourages a lot of work life balance, including the love for sports. And so would you shed some light on how things are within Decathlon, of course, and also within the entire supply chain industry? How do you think work-life balance is?
Okay, maybe Sanad, I'll go ahead first. The fact is, the essence that connects all of us, maybe I'm saying all of us, it's Sanota and every decathlonian that I'm representing right now, is sports. So whether it's about any meeting, any discussion that we have to do, I think our day starts with the sport, around the sport, whether we are tired, whether we are sleepy, or it doesn't matter. So in the morning or in the evening, you end up playing a sport with somebody whom you had a very hefty discussion about pricing, or maybe a very rigorous discussion about product not available, but at the same time the same person is playing with you. So I think that sportive behavior comes at the back. At the same time, yes, I think I will not deny there's a panic button pressed every second, but yeah, as I was saying, the whole point is about choosing your battles. And again, I will use one of the common management jargons is do right things versus do things right. I think this is very useful in a job role, or any of the job role you will join in any industry. Is you will have to really define what things you do want to write and versus right things. In simple words, it's nothing but choosing a battle between an efficiency versus effectiveness. You want to do things right, or you really want to do it every day correctly. That is more important to you. So this is something that we practice every day. And last, I think most important is, which Sanada will agree, is let's not forget, we all work for the same reason. So whether it's about delayed hours or anything, which I'm pretty sure we all have managed quite well because of COVID. It was 90% of the time work from home. Then we switched to hybrid mode. We are in office now, and I'm pretty sure whatever was the context, we keep adjusting towards it, and we keep fighting towards it. If we just try to what do you say if we try to keep our values very stagnant, we will die in our work life culture. So we have to be pragmatic. We have to be really creative in finding solutions. Maybe sometimes we have to be digitally available, sometimes it's okay to be physically available, sometimes it's not okay to be digitally available. So these choices is something that we have really worked on, and it worked out really well for us.
Right. So, Sanada, you have some views on this?
No, I mean, and to add on, I mean, I completely agree with what Chitran says. Of course, I mean, we've evolved from being physically available all the time, and I think it applies for most of us working in retail. That from being physically available all the time, now it's more of an hybrid mode, and people are more and more acceptable towards online and hybrid way of working. So that really suits. I mean, like Chitran said, whatever works better, whatever suits that particular situation is what we adapt to, and we choose our battles. Like we really stand by our values of being adapting vitality, being responsible towards what we offer to our customers, and while we do it, being authentic in what we do. These are the really the values that we stand by. And global supply chain, if you ask me, does there really something called work-life balance exist? I would say it's for us to really choose and make that possible. I mean, I've been in the industry for quite long, and I can really vouch that from what it was 15 years back to now what it is, there is a drastic difference. And we all know that some of us really enjoy working long hours. And I think it's about being more efficient at work and choosing our battles cleverly, right? And any function for that matter in supply chain, if there is a panic button, we all be available at that time, and it's never the same throughout the year, right? And there are times when you're really working for 14 hours a day, and there are also times you're wondering, what am I doing today? I mean, it's as basic as that, right? So yes, I mean, we choose our battles cleverly, and it's never the same throughout the year. But and at the same time, the career in this field, uh, I mean, I've never seen a dull day. There is always some challenge thrown, like I said, because of an external factor or internally within a company or whatever, but there is never a dull day. So I would any day swear by what we are all collectively doing in supply chain.
Right. And that's also something I think which will always keep an employee engaged, and just having something challenging to work with is always good to have. Right. So, and since you've both been in this industry for some time, you would also have a fair bit of idea on how how does a career, how does one start a career in supply chain management? How does how does one move on? Like, from what are the roles and what are the skills that one should focus on?
So when we talk about a supply chain, I mean, what is a supply chain? It's basically from demand to fulfilling the demand, right? So it's basically an order fulfillment that we're talking about, right? So when it comes to career options, you could be in a manufacturing setup, so to say. You could choose a career in production, so to say. You could choose a career in planning. You could choose a career in warehousing. You could choose a career in retail. You could choose, when I say retail, it's about order management part of it. You could choose a career in supply or even in logistics or a warehousing, right? And and it's all about for somebody like Chitransh, who probably likes, and Chitransh, for example, is a classic example in Decathlon about how his career has evolved across various domains of supply chain, and I'll let him speak to you more about it. That he's actually worked in different domains of supply chain in Decathlon itself. Like, just to take my example, I mean, I started off in ITC, in retail division, and in production, managing lean manufacturing. And after that, I moved to planning function. And now, again, I'm in procurement. So therefore, there are different career options available. It could be horizontally available as different planning functions, or therefore, if you end up doing well, you could vertically grow. But then the options available in supply chain are across planning, across manufacturing, or across warehousing, like I mentioned. I'll let Chitran speak more about it, about his career evolution in Decathlon. It's very interesting.
No, I think Sanitha here undermining yours, but what I really want to say is I was a real enthusiast, a typical MBA pass out, wanting to learn everything about supply chain, trying to do something. But I started my journey at retail, understood how retail works, and frankly, this is an opportunity only a company like Decathlon can give, because you have to start at the basics, so retail. Then I moved to supply chain, basically a role of demand planner, and I did it for quite some time, very happily, and I enjoyed it a lot, because I think it's when you work as a demand planner, you have an interaction with a lot of verticals in the same company, whether it's finance, logistics, transport, production, or I don't know, you name the access, you will interact with everything. So I think what really keeps you alive is the level of networking you get as a demand planner and everything. It's something that really inspires you. Then I think this is one of the options. If you are a person who really likes to go into detail of how a product is designed, I think manufacturing industry is one of the option. If you are more of a person who likes to define effective processes, I think logistics and warehouse could be your option. And I'm too generalizing it. I'm pretty sure there are other options, but post this as a demand planner role for quite some time and enjoying it, not just doing it, but I did it for very long time and happily did it. And then I moved it at a more of a strategic role where I lead the brand. So it does not only involve supply, but it also involves about customers to the end product and everything. So I lead the whole brand today, but internal brand, sorry, which is Racket Sports. But moving as a just from resource on one of the supply chain to being a leader on deciding what kind of product, assortment list, merchandising, digital, and everything we want to work with is something that I've done in past, and I really enjoy it, and that's what keeps me alive. And I think I will just jump back to your previous question. I think this is what is really keeping me engaged. I stick back to Decathlon, and this is where I really find pleasure to stay back and maintain my work-life balance way further.
Right. And so, are there any sort of entry barriers to a career in supply chain? What are the skills that people would require, to start off their careers here? And how do they, I mean, in your opinion, what is the best way? What is the best? Is there any particular background that they need to come from in this particular industry?
So, I mean, it's more often said that, okay, when you study supply chain is when you come in. Not necessarily. I mean, we have engineers working in our stores, some of really, really talented engineering graduates working as sports leaders who are, responsible for understanding their customers and users pertaining to that sports. And they are the ones who are actually responsible for giving insights to people like Chitransh who handle a brand on how the users are evolving in a particular region of the country, so on and so forth, right? So there are engineers who are in stores. Ideally, you would imagine an engineer to land up in one of the, the other kind of jobs, maybe a computer science engineer doing something else in one of the IT companies. But we also have a computer science engineer or a mechanical engineer being in our stores, right? So that is how the career begins for somebody in Decathlon. Like we said, sports is very, very inherent to us. And anybody working in Decathlon for that matter, it's a prerequisite, so to say. Or rather, if you're a sport enthusiast, we obviously kind of find the company ourselves. So it works both ways, right? So it could be an engineer, or it could be even a BCom graduate or a BCA graduate who could potentially start a supply chain role. But what is really essential are skills like, being analytical in what you do, basic domain knowledge, so to say, in terms of, let's say, if I were to begin in production, do I have the domain knowledge or the openness to really learn basics of manufacturing, so to say? Or something like, if I were to talk about a procurement role, what is really essential is for somebody who has the best negotiation skills. Now, us being Indians, negotiation skills comes very easily for most of us, right? So things like that. And for that matter, project management skills. Chitran spoke about, a product designer, or for somebody like even in Chitransh's role, whenever he is bringing on a new product for a certain user, he goes on a project management mode, right? So it's very important for somebody who is getting into this career to have that project management mindset. Most importantly, like we said, how well we do troubleshooting, how well we have problem solving skills. These are, I think, some of the basics that we look at when somebody really looks at a career in supply chain, so to say. And then, of course, if there is a certification that one can have, or if there is an MBA that somebody can really have, it's obviously a plus point. It's obviously something that you learn and then get into a particular field.
Right. So you heard it, guys. It's not me who's saying this, but there are, there are very less entry barriers to supply chain management industry, and I think, and that's one of the best points about it, because once you are in this industry, then you'll also get to experience and interact with a lot of people from different backgrounds. And of course, the kind of networking and the knowledge sharing opportunities that this brings in is immense. And which is why I think, I just like to, just plug in the product here. We are doing this, a certificate program in supply chain management with Decathlon and SPJMR. And it's a great opportunity for you to actually, begin your careers here. And no matter what experience you have, no matter what, if you have 10 years of experience, or if you have, if you're just a fresher, and whichever industry are you from, right? This is a good start for you in this particular industry. And so there's one interesting question for you, Chitransh. What was your specialization, MBA specialization, that's asked by Jay Nishad?
Yes, I read that. So yes, indeed, Jay Nishad, I am an engineer in information technology, passed out. So that's my basics. And then in masters, I did supply chain and marketing as a specialization in MBA. So that's more where I mean, post engineering. That's where what inspired me to study more and gave me an option too. But at the same time, when I saw this opportunity in Decathlon, it was really interesting. They said, frankly, I'm a sports person, and they said you have to come early morning for the interview to play sports. And I was like, are you serious? Is this a job interview? And they said, yes, indeed. So I think that changed the game. That I still remember the date, 22nd of July 2014. I think that was the day asked me, do you really want to come for interview? It's at morning 6 a.m. And I was at the very vast corner of Bangalore. So that changed the whole day and game. And I'm still sticking back to Decathlon. That's more about me. But yeah, that's what is the answer.
Right. Thank you so much. Also, in the interest of time, I think we are almost at the close of the entire session. But I just like you guys to, just take one more question. So I think we talked about this at the start, but we haven't come across to discussing it. But what is the digitalization aspect in supply chain? How is it? How is the entire game changing because of that? I have a few friends who I've heard stories from, that there's IoT also being introduced into the entire supply chain industry. And how true is this, and what are the implications for it?
So it's a very interesting question. What I will say is there is a development every day. It keeps coming into your systems. I mean, there is every year there's a new tool deployment or something, so you will have to get adjusted to it in your supply chain. And this new tool deployment is nothing but to help you to ease your job really, and I think that's what is going to help all of us. That's what I feel. At the same time, I think the answers remain same when you are in supply chain. Common sense is most important. Whether tools will give you information or something, but reality is common sense, which will be most important when you join any supply chain job. And then I'm pretty sure Sanada will add a lot because she has more expertise on this topic. She has worked on various tools. But what I feel is there are genre of tools available. It's just that we have to understand, do we work on multiple platforms to avoid it? Because I think this is a common term in a lot of management education is information redundancy or duplication of data. How do we avoid it? How do we try to get control over it is what really defines all of us. Okay, over to you, Sanita.
In terms of, let's say, digitization, for us, what is important is to know what our consumer wants. All right. So therefore, what are the tools that we have, and not to really have too many of them, and not to have too many sources with respect to that, is what we thrive on. Where I'm coming to is in terms of really knowing the demand and the right demand. It actually starts from there. So the tools that we have and the digitization is more towards that, in terms of having the right tools to capture the demand and to know when do we really need those, and to have those tools incorporated in our supply chain to say that, okay, how do I make right decisions across the supply chain to kind of, minimize the disruptions that we often see and to be more efficient across the supply chain. It could be even tools like the SAPs of the world that we speak about, which really helps us through across the supply chain, right, from the demand management towards into the end, the warehousing part of it. So these are some of the tools that we're not really, I would say, up there with the best, to be very frank, but we are there and we know what we need in terms of digitization. So, and the progress is still there and happening. Probably a couple of years or so, we could get more better in terms of digitization across the supply chain for us.
Yeah, I think, and probably in a few years, we'll also, as you mentioned right now, you're doing India to India manufacturing and supplying. I think in a few years, we'll be probably, hopefully, in a state where we'll be exporting a lot of stuff to the outside world, right? And that's the end goal, I think, right? So, all
Exactly.
right.
And so even to add in terms of, the retail perspective, how the digitization has really helped us. Example, COVID times, right? So we really relied on online sales. And that is something that gave us a boost in terms of, what other brands were already doing, and we actually, kind of imbibed or took on to do. So these kind of things really helped us to kind of, manage situations better in terms of difficult situations of COVID.
Maybe I will add one point here. Sorry, but it's again common sense. If we see there's queuing is a problem at store, we allow everybody to bill online wherever. Use your phone to bill. You don't have to wait at the queue at the junction. If you don't, with time today, we know people don't have time to visit stores, so you can order digitally. With time, people want to visit store but don't even have the option. Have enough time to park the car in the parking lot, go up and wait for another half an hour, search the product, take it, then bill it online. So we have something called as click and collect. So a customer comes, he bills everything, and while in the parking lot, when he passes the parking lot, he has all the full order ready already for him to be packed and dispatched. So these are the things that we were trying to search on, and the word really remains as common sense. And then during COVID, we also tried something called as augmented reality and all other options to see if person sitting, how will they look in certain dress or something. We tried everything, but with time, it's purely on user needs and your common sense.
Right. Thank you so much, guys. I think this also brings us to the close of our session, and it's, to me, honestly, it's been a really wonderful and insightful session. I would also request the viewers to check out this Alternate certificate program that we in supply chain management that we're doing with SPJMR and Decathlon. Do give it a shot if you really think, if you really see yourself working in supply chain management, or in fact working with Decathlon. They are also going to look at candidates from this particular program to across for multiple positions in their own organization. So do give it a shot and do apply to the program. The link is in the description, and you'll also find it in the live chat. Do give it a shot. Thank you so much, Sanutha, and thank you, Chitransh, for being a part of this webinar. It was lovely having you here, and it was a wonderful evening.
Pleasure, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share a couple of things that we do on a day-to-day basis, and a couple of things that we know are good enough to be shared in the area of supply chain. Pleasure.
Likewise, pleasure. Thank you so much. It was nice interacting, and I'm seeing the questions. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.